Tonight, Melbourne choking under bushfire smoke, and we're stuck with it for days. The warnings from health experts. Plus the heartbreaking cost of our bushfire crisis, as many as 300 homes gone. The latest live from the fire front. The weather provides some relief for now, but firefighters are preparing for a tough fight ahead as cash floods in to help shattered families. Home grocery bills set to take a hit in the fire fallout. Thieves steal $250,000 in minutes in a cruel Christmas Eve raid. And how Hollywood shone a spotlight on the Australian fires at the Golden Globes.
Live from our Melbourne headquarters, this is 7 News with Mike Amor.
Good evening. There's more bad news on the bushfire crisis tonight, with firefighters revealing as many as 300 homes have been destroyed, and there's still a long battle ahead of us. Rain and cooler weather provided some relief today, but the reprieve will be short with tough conditions ahead. The Victorian fire poses the biggest risk. The Prime Minister has pledged $2 billion to rebuild shattered lives. The only good news, 4 people feared missing in the fire have been found safe and well. The bushfire crisis has prompted a warning from health authorities as smoke choked the city. Experts say it will be around for days, and we need to be careful because it's toxic.
Melbourne's usually majestic skyline suffocated, buildings barely visible and homes inundated by the smell of smoke.
In the morning, it was so hard to see that the visibility was much lower.
I always have my ventilator on me, especially for stuff like this. It's just getting worse and worse.
It makes it real for us here. We don't really see the fires here.
It's a bit crazy this morning. It feels like the fires are right on the doorstep.
And they were, but not blazes burning in the state's east and northeast. The haze was instead drifting up from fires in Tasmania, thanks to southeasterly winds.
Melbourne is what I would call poor, but there are other suburbs, Brighton and a few others, Dandenong, that have hit the very poor category already.
On its 5-level ranking system, the EPA classified Melbourne's air quality as a 3. It paled in comparison to the haze that blanketed those areas impacted by bushfires. In the Alpine region, it glowed orange, but no matter the colour, all smoke can be toxic.
Bushfire smoke is hazardous. I mean, often recycling fires are called toxic, but bushfire smoke is also toxic. There are health effects from bushfire smoke that is really the same as any other smoke. As
a result, we're being urged to stay indoors as much as possible, regardless of whether you have a pre-existing breathing condition like asthma or not.
But really you need to be in a space where the smoke is at the lowest levels. That might be in your work environment, that might be at home, that might be in an air-conditioned building.
And if you're looking for reprieve, a cloth or surgical mask like these won't work. Authorities say they do little to filter dangerous particles. Only a P2 mask with an adjustable valve can do that.
It is important to recognise that masks can give you a false sense of security. Masks are not something that you put on so that you can go outside when in fact we're telling you to stay indoors.
And it's certainly got worse as the day's gone on. Tonight we're in Docklands. Normally behind me a beautiful clear shot of the Balti, but tonight nothing but pea soup, and there is a strong smell of smoke lingering. It's important to remember that health conditions as a result of smoke really can creep up on anyone. You don't have to have suffered from a previous health condition like asthma. If you are concerned, it is vital that you contact a doctor, or you can call 1-800-NURSE for at-home health advice. Mike?
Looks dreadful out there, Jody. Thank you. For some families, the rain provided a chance to see what was left of their homes and their lives. They were allowed back in when evacuation orders were lifted temporarily, but on some fire fronts it's still far too dangerous.
This is Victorian, on the edge of the state's north and well over the edge of disaster. The blaze isn't just ripping through thousands of hectares of bush, it's racing across paddocks and grassland, creating tornadoes of flame.
Jesus Christ, look at that.
Seemingly unstoppable aerial water bombing just denting its relentless march. At first light, a massive convoy left Tallangatta heading into the fire zone. Much needed fuel supplies and feed for the cattle. After surviving the fire, they're now at risk of slowly starving to death. With still not getting in, many desperate locals who fled the fire threat, only a handful are being allowed back.
I'm a nurse and trying to get back, so I believe I'm on the list.
So you'll go back in and you'll provide medical services?
Yeah, I'm a nurse, so I'm trying to get back to help DD up there.
Is everyone here a nurse?
No.
Please, no?
Annette Redfern was let through to take her husband his medication.
Yes, so, look at that, that's devastating.
Here in the heart of town, there are still hundreds of residents, but authorities are concerned about letting too many people back into Corryong with fears of exhausting already slim resources. This crew saved a farmer's home. Since then, he's been surviving only on jam sandwiches. Today, they're taking him a box of groceries.
That's what we're here for.
This afternoon, finally, what everyone's been waiting for. Rain. It provided a little hope, but not much else. Nowhere near enough to stop the fires.
People are starting to realise the enormity of this bushfire emergency.
Local Mayor David Wortman is also a volunteer firefighter.
We saw houses lost, but we saved houses too.
He's worried about what's to come.
Yeah, the potential is there for those fires to grow.
There are fears the Corryong fire could meet up with those burning just across the border.
There is every chance that all these fires will join up.
The next round in this battle is fast approaching, with more bad fire weather on the way. Authorities say the heat expected here later in the week will only fuel the potential for firestorms. Now the Corryong fire and the New South Wales fires are both burning along the same road with only a few kilometres in between. Mike?
Frightening stuff, Georgia, thank you. The other major fire still causing concern is in the Alpine region. Tegan Doling is in the Ovens Incident Control Room. Tegan, how are things playing out there tonight?
Well, Mark, I'm in the operations room, and this is where all the decisions are made into how they're going to tackle these two main fires, one down near Mount Hotham, the other up behind Mount Buffalo. Now, I just want to take you around the room. Over here, we have people from Victoria Police. We've seen the SES in here, Forest Fire Management Victoria, and also the CFA. This is where they make the decisions on where and how they're going to deploy more than 250 firefighters that have been out on the fire ground today. And just over the other side, there's a lot of maps. We know how quickly this can all change, and they've got up to the second updates up there on the TV screens. They're very desperate to get on top of these two main fires, also a smaller one on top of Mount Buffalo, to make sure that there's no potential run-ons into townships like Bright and Myrtleford. Today, the firefighters focused on establishing containment lines to prevent any potential spot fires. But due to the heavy smoke, the aircraft unfortunately has been grounded. But there's hope that maybe tomorrow they can be flown in if this smoke lifts, so that they can really get on top of the blazes before the hot conditions return from around Friday. Ironically, though, today's rain could hinder fire crews due to making the ground boggy.
It is a double-edged sword when you get rain. Obviously, it's going to suppress the fire spread for now. However, it does potentially limit our access to the fire ground too.
Now, all these here in the Alpine community have been told all the locals can return home, but obviously just to be wary of the smoke and to monitor the situation, because as we know, it can change very quickly. Mike?
Tegan Doling, thank you. Of course, the weather is critical to what happens next in this fire crisis. Melina Saris joins us with a look at what's ahead. And Mel, we haven't seen the last of the smoke.
Mike, conditions will start to improve tomorrow and even more on Wednesday, but the smoke haze is likely to continue until the end of the week. We will have another burst of easterly winds on Thursday, and that's likely to push the smoke back towards our central areas. But we shouldn't see conditions this bad again. We have had patchy rain across the state. The highest falls were in central and eastern parts, and they were between 10 and 15 millimetres. Some of those places haven't had rain in more than a month. It last rained in Bairnsdale on Christmas Day, but only a millimetre fell. They only had 6 mils for the whole month of December. Today, Bairnsdale received 17 millimetres. Albury last had rain on the 3rd of December, and a little over a mil fell. Today, they have had just 2 mils. These cooler conditions and rain are welcome, but the danger in our fire zones is not over. It's heating up towards the end of the week, and I'll have all those details later in the bulletin, Mike.
Not what we wanted to hear. Thanks, Mel. The Andrews government is warning that big bushfires could be the new normal and that we can expect to see more and more damage every year. It made the admission as it revealed it was setting up a Victorian bushfire recovery agency to lead rebuilding efforts.
Homes, roads, bridges, power lines, all lost in town after town. Rebuilding will be so complex, a state government agency is being established to oversee the task, with former Police Chief Commissioner Ken Lay in charge.
So I'll be looking for local people to give local advice, local resources.
Called Bushfire Recovery Victoria, the body will be permanent, so it's in place next time disaster strikes.
We should just be honest about the fact we're going to see more and more fires, more and more damage as each fire season comes.
I think most of us understand now what we're seeing is the new norm.
The Premier expects the recovery process will take years and the bill top $1 billion. There's so much work to do. The Minister conceding some areas still don't have communications.
We've got communities down with 000. They're our #1 priorities.
2 more towns today had no tap water and airlifts were once again cancelled in Malakuta. This was the view from Defence helicopters on Saturday, and today was also declared too smoky to land as fires still burn. For the predicted spike days on Thursday and Friday, vehicles like this will be invaluable, giving forest fire management access to areas that otherwise would be impenetrable from the ground. It is the most heavy-duty fire truck in the fleet.
It's a bit of a beast out in the bush, so it's a good bit of gear and we can get bulk water to where we need it.
Its use a reminder there's no place for complacency, and East Gippsland is still a no-go zone.
My message to tourists and those rubberneckers out there, do not go into communities.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
The Victorian Bushfire Agency was announced on the same day the Prime Minister launched a $2 billion federal relief fund. But the Premier says they won't overlap. Scott Morrison says bushfire recovery is his #1 priority, regardless of the cost.
The bushfire season is not over yet, but the government's recovery mission is now well underway. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announces a $2 billion fund to help rebuild those hard-hit areas.
One of the most significant, if not most significant, response to a crisis of this kind that the country has seen.
Made available within weeks, it'll go towards reconstructing fire-ravaged roads, bridges and more without help from the states.
We will meet every cost that needs to be met. We will make every investment that needs to be made.
The damage bill from this unprecedented bushfire crisis will be large and its impact to the budget significant. But Scott Morrison and his Treasurer have today signalled that the bushfire recovery is more important than the government's long-prized return to surplus.
The surplus is of no focus for me. What matters to me is the human cost and meeting whatever costs we need to meet.
Our bottom line is getting support to the Australian people.
Today's commitment is not enough to exhaust the $5 billion surplus forecast this financial year. But Scott Morrison insists he's prepared to spend more.
The fires are still burning and they'll be burning for months to come. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, we will ensure the resilience and future of this country.
As the insurance bill tops $400 million already, there's still a long way until May. Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
A timber mill inferno has added to the heartache for residents of the New South Wales South Coast. The Eden Township has been spared, but the livelihoods of 600 people are now in doubt because of the blaze at the woodchip mill.
The mill itself is extensively damaged.
I don't know whether they'll ever rebuild it or what will happen there, but we just got to wait and see.
HMAS Adelaide has arrived off the coast carrying supplies and 400 personnel. High-profile sportsmen, including Shane Warne and Dane Beams, are donating valuable memorabilia to raise money for fire victims. Australians are digging deep, but the generosity comes with a warning to be aware of scammers.
Cricket legend Shane Warne is auctioning off the baggy green he wore throughout his Test career.
To give my cap away to someone that could hopefully wear it or have it, and just have it and be proud of having it, it's the least I can do. We're all trying to do our best. Everyone wants to touch and help out.
Collingwood's Dane Beams is putting his 2010 Premiership medal up for grabs, taking bids via Instagram. Australian comedian Celeste Barber's become a social media superstar by mocking the apparently perfect lives of celebrities.
Look, I will admit I've been a little bit lazy in the shoe department and they're not colour coordinated.
Now she's converted her 8 million fan following into financial support for firefighters and victims. $35 million worth at last count.
Victoria gets some, that South Australia gets some. Also, families of people who have died in these fires, the wildlife. I get it all. I'm hearing you all.
Australian Open champion Maria Sharapova donated $25,000 and challenged Novak Djokovic to do the same. And he did. Meanwhile, the Premier's reinforced the need for cash, not goods.
We don't mean to cause offence, but now is the time. We don't need more food. We don't need more clothing. The best thing to do, Google the Victorian bushfire appeal and then give money, whether it be $1 or more.
But not everyone's motivated by goodwill. The consumer watchdog is warning people to donate carefully.
People impersonating relatives of victims and seeking money on behalf of the victims. We've had people cold calling, seeking donations, and we've had people pretending to be GoFundMe type websites.
Dean Felton, 7 News.
And the bushfire disaster has been front of mind for many Hollywood stars at today's Golden Globe Awards.
My heart breaks. It's absolutely... I actually can't even look at you because I might cry.
My thoughts are splintered. It's devastating. And, I mean, what's going to happen? It's everywhere and it's uncontrollable.
I've been there twice. I adore Australia, and the fact that what's happening there is just beyond heartbreaking.
I'm thinking of you and what you're going through, you know, and so it's not lost on me how chaotic and tragic what's going on in this.
We'll have the winners, losers and all the controversy from the Globes a little later in the bulletin. And if you'd like to help fire victims, you can donate to the Victorian Bushfire Appeal, which has just been set up by the Andrews government. The website is vic.gov.au/bushfire appeal. 100% of all donations will be directed to communities in need. The bushfire crisis is being felt on supermarket shelves as livestock and crops go up in flames and supply trucks become stranded. Fires are already set to push apple prices up, with some wines will be more expensive after vineyards were scorched.
The bushfires and heat are devastating our food supplies, from dairy and meat to fruit and vegetables, sending prices you pay skywards.
Carrots is a little bit of a short supply of good carrots. Like we're basically out of lettuce today, out of tomatoes.
At the markets today, some produce damaged by raging bushfires, other lines in short supply.
We average about 500 semi-trailers per night, and we're getting in about 400. There's logs across roads in major roadways.
Other highways are cut by fire. Trucks like these stranded in WA. That's causing a spike in prices. Avocados last week $40 a tray, now $50, up 20%. Batlow, a major supplier of apples, lost 5,000 trees and temporarily power. Prices up at least 20%. Tomatoes, the popular Roma variety, last week $24 a bag, today $35, up 30%.
But there's a lot of other growers down there that have been affected really bad. To what extent, to tell you the truth, it's still too early to tell.
With vineyards in Victoria and South Australia burnt, wine prices will also rise around 10%, especially for cheaper whites. And many surviving crops will be smoke-tainted. Cherries and oranges now gone, their season finishing 2 weeks earlier than normal. With more fires expected to ravage fruit and veggie crops and store supplies, it's likely we're in for further shortages and price rises. Helen Wellings, 7 News.